In this video, I'm going to talk about the Greek goddess Athena. Now, Athena represents wisdom, she represents war, and she represents womanly handicrafts, such as weaving. I say war, but really she represents, she's not a bloodthirsty goddess, she represents war as sort of as a last resort to keep the peace, basically. She's always described as a very stately, elegant goddess. She is here. I have a statue right here, actually, that I picked up from Athens many years ago. Here she is. She's always seen, usually with shield and her spear. She usually has a war helmet that's pulled up so you can see her face. She's sometimes pictured with an owl, because the owl represents her. And they say she's got really amazing gray eyes. Of course, people have heard of the Parthenon. The Parthenon is perhaps the most famous ancient site in Greece. It was a temple dedicated to Athena. It's called the Parthenon because Parthenon, the word Parthenon is associated with virginity, basically. Athena is one of three virgin goddesses, the other two being Artemis and Hestia. So that's why the Parthenon is called the Parthenon, because it's associated with the virginity of the goddess it represents, which is Athena. Speaking of Athens and the Parthenon, Athens, of course, has its name from Athena. One of the myths says that there was a contest on who would be the patron deity of Athens. So it was between Poseidon, the god of the ocean, the god of the sea, and Athena. Poseidon produced, according to one story, he produced a spring, and another story, he produced the very first horse. People really liked the idea of the horse. But Athena, she created something that they liked just a little more, the olive tree. Yeah, the Greeks and their olive oil. Pretty serious. So she won the contest, and Poseidon got really mad about that. Another thing that's associated with Athena is sometimes she's called Pallas Athena. And the reason is that Pallas actually was a childhood friend of Athena. When they were kids, they had a little sparring contest. They had a little play fight. And Athena, being the goddess of war, I guess was kind of strong and she wound up killing her friend Pallas. And she was so upset that forever she took the name of Pallas as in addition to her own name. So sometimes she's known as Pallas Athena. And Pallas, of course, lives on in such words as palladium. I think I should mention a few things about Athena's birth. There's an interesting myth that talks about how she's born. There was a prophecy that Zeus heard of. What happens is that before he was married to Hera, Zeus was married to another goddess by the name of Metis. And there was a prophecy going around that if Metis had a son, he would be greater than his father. And Zeus wasn't having that. So he tricked her into turning into a fly, and he ate his wife, Metis. But that wasn't the end of that. He got a terrible headache one day, and he couldn't stand it anymore. So he went to the craftsmith god, the blacksmith god, Hephaestus, and said, take one of your axes, because he made great weapons. Take one of your axes and split my head open, because we got to let out what's in here. And Hephaestus split his head open, and out popped Athena, totally clothed and wearing her armor, and that's how she was born. Again, from Greece, I have a little vase here because a lot of ancient myths are depicted in Greek vases. So I have a little duplicate here, a little imitation here. Here's Zeus, and here's his thunderbolt. That shows that he's Zeus. He's got his thunderbolt. Here's Hephaestus with his axe. He just finished splitting Zeus's head open, and that little face that's coming out of Zeus's head, that's Athena. Yeah, cool. One reason why I've always liked Athena is because she would always help a hero in need. She was always there. I mean, many of us think of the gods, I mean, the humans as playthings to the gods sometimes, but Athena would always help a hero in need. For example, if you read the Odyssey, it opens up with her pleading with the other gods, can't we help Odysseus finally get home? It's been many years of him trying to get home. She helped Achilles during the Trojan War because she was on the side of the Greeks. She helped Perseus slay Medusa. She helped him get his sandals and his other equipment to help him kill Medusa. She pleaded with the furies she pleaded for the innocence of Orestes in order to help him escape the furies who were hounding him. And then she made peace with the furies by telling them that don't be mad that I made you stop harassing Orestes. That's another story why they were harassing Orestes. But she made peace with the Furies by telling them that you will be worshipped in Athens as gods, and they were happy. So here is Athena as kind of a peacemaker in a way. Like I said, she only represents war as a last resort to keep the peace. Speaking of Perseus and Medusa, one thing that Athena is also associated with among her equipment, she's got her helmet and her owl and her gray eyes. Sometimes on her shield you see the image of Medusa, which is this horrible face that has a tongue hanging out, and instead of hair there's snakes. And I had just said that she helped Perseus kill Medusa. After he kills Medusa, he gives Athena the head of Medusa, and Athena has a habit of carrying it around and displaying it on her shield. The unfortunate thing about the story of Medusa is that even though Athena is in many ways a wonderful goddess, she does have a dark side. And the story of how Medusa became Medusa is actually kind of a disappointment. She was actually a beautiful woman once, Medusa. She was part of three sisters, and she was unfortunately raped by the god Poseidon. And she was raped in the worst possible place you could be raped, a temple devoted to Athena. And who does Athena take it out on? Well, she's not going to take it out on her brother Poseidon, so she takes it out on poor Medusa by turning her into an ugly monster whoever she looks at, she turns to stone. So, unfortunate. I'm going to say one more story about Athena, again, just to show you how you really shouldn't mess with Athena. And that's the story of Athena and Arachne. Arachne was a woman who was an amazing weaver. She wove tapestries. And she committed something called hubris, which is basically thinking you're as good as the gods. So she thought she was as good as Athena. So Athena visited her one day, and they had a contest. They had a weaving contest. They had a weave-off. And she was actually really good. I mean, Athena was great. She's a goddess. But she kept up her own, Arachne. But the downside is that whereas Athena wove something respectable, Arachne, her tapestry was imagery of the gods performing less than honorable acts, being lecherous and so forth. So she was being really disrespectful to the gods. So Athena, in a rage, took her tapestry and tore it up, and Arachne got so angry she went off and hanged herself. And Athena kind of took pity on her. She prevented her from dying, but she had to punish her some way. So she turned her into the very first spider. So the spider goes on to this day weaving its web just like Arachne did in her time. And of course, for those biology fans out there, spiders and scorpions belong to a class of arthropods known as arachnids, named after Arachne. I said that was going to be my last story, but I think I want to mention one more really briefly. Like I said, Athena was a virgin goddess, so you don't want to, approach her in a horny way because she'll get really angry. The other god, Hephaestus, actually tried to ravish her one day, and she yelled and ran away and said, "Are you crazy?" But he apparently got so excited he spilled some semen on her leg, and she went, "Ew." So she wiped it off with some wool and threw it on the earth. Now the earth is considered a goddess too, and goddess Earth said, "Ew." But because the semen fell on the earth, it actually conceived into into some being. But that's another story. I'm not going to get into this figure that was conceived by the earth from Hephaestus's sperm that was thrown on Athena's leg. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all I'm going to say about Athena. You can learn more about Athena in my video on books on Greek and Roman mythology. Oh, that reminds me of one more thing. Athena was known as Minerva in Roman mythology, and she was very important there too. As a matter of fact, she formed sort of a trinity in a way, where there was during, if you look at Roman religion, there was a time where Jupiter, who's Zeus, Jupiter was at top, and then another high deity was his wife, Hera, who was known as Juno in Rome, and Minerva was the next in line in terms of the big three. Okay, now I'm finally finished. Okay, so if you have some time, look at my my video on Greek and Roman books on Greek and Roman mythology if you want to know more about Athena. And until next time.